Hey everyone, let's work on the grade task. So here we have a char variable for the grade, and based on the grade, we need to output some message. For example, if the grade is A, then we will say excellent, and if it's F, then we'll say failed. And it seems like we're also going to handle the invalid grade options. So, for example, if someone put Z, Z will not be a valid grade option, so we'll say invalid grade. Okay, so there's a couple options for us. I think for this one, let's practice with nested. So we'll check if it's a valid grade first, then we'll check the results, like the actual grade. So let's start with the char grade. That's going to be the starting point. I'll just start with some letter for now, and we can change it later. The first thing I want to do is check if this is a valid grade. All right, let's see. To check a valid grade, it should be straightforward. I can actually use the functionality that every character has a number associated to it. I can use that component here. So I can make a boolean and say is valid grade, let's say. And I can use a boolean here. So I can say if the grade is more than or equal to A, and the grade is less than or equal to so we have A, B, C, D, E. So I guess E is not a valid grade, right? We need to ignore that one. So I guess we can go from A to D. Can't necessarily do E because that's not valid. So we'll go from A to D. And then F is also valid technically here. So it's failing, but it's valid. What I'll do is I'll just group this in parentheses, although we don't necessarily need it. I'm going to do it for just clarity and readability. So I'll say it could be A through D, or the grade can be equal to F. That's also a valid grade. So I'm going to check that first, and then I'll say if I have a valid grade, then I will have some kind of result. I'll do this checking next. Otherwise, let's handle this part. Otherwise, is if it's not valid, I will say something. Although I need to kind of, I have a bunch of results here. I don't want to print multiple times. Let's make one variable here. That's going to be my final result. So my result will be equal to just empty space in the beginning. I may not need to even assign it, but it's usually a good practice to just make sure there's no issues. So I'll just start with that. And then in this else statement, I'll say the result is equal to, and if I'm coming to the else block, it means that I had an invalid grade. It means I typed something that was not A through D or F. Right, so if I give any other letter, including lowercase letters, it will consider that to be invalid and my else block will run. Okay, so let's print the result at the end here. That's the final thing I need to do. Now, I could test this. So let's say the user says something like Z. It's going to say Z is an invalid grade. And I can also do something like a lowercase a. So even though A was expected to be correct, it's still giving invalid grade because A is actually lowercase. So that does affect our output. Okay, we're only looking for uppercase A to lowercase to uppercase D. So we're only looking at uppercase here. Now that I have the just first check, now I'm going to go inside and check for each individual result based on the grade. Like, so if it was A, what is the result? And so on. As we set this up, I will note that could you have done this all without the nested structure? Yes, you could have. It's mainly just to practice it, just force us to practice nested a little bit so that we're comfortable with reading how nested works. But yeah, we definitely could have done this just with one multi-branch. But because I did choose to do nested here, now when I go inside of the loop, not the loop, when I go inside of the if statement here, I know that it's a valid grade from A to F. And so all I need to do here is check that. I'll say if the grade is equal to A, then what is the result? The result will be excellent. One note, remember here that chars are primitive type. So when I do equals equals, I'm comparing primitive types. So that's completely good. We'll do else if the grade is equal to B, and make sure it's uppercase B. Then the result will be equal to something else. We'll say great job. And we just need to repeat this for 3 more times and edit. So let's just copy that and paste that. So for grade C, for grade D, and for grade F. Although we don't need we don't need an else if for the last one. We can actually reduce that down to just else. The reason we can have the last one be else is because we did nested. So the only time that you can be in this inner if statement is if you have A through D or F. So we know that this last one is always going to be F. That's why we can keep it else. If you did not do nested, then the last one had to be else if as well. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been valid. So let's see. We have good, we have passed, and then failed. So this one is good, passed, and failed. Yep. So everything is in there. All we need to do now is test it. So let's say I give a grade of B. B says great job. Lowercase b just to test it again. Says invalid grade. I can say F. F is a valid grade, so it'll say failed. Perfect. So it seems like it's working how we wanted it to. Again, there's no right answer necessarily. There's always multiple ways to solve. And in this one, I did choose to do nested just for practice. But if you did this without nested, it would have looked almost similar, just some small differences. See you on the next one.